Have you ever looked back at the people you've fallen for and realized they were all, in some sense, the same person wearing different faces? Different name, different city, different story. But the same ending, the same ache, the same issues, the same slow-motion way it fell apart. And you've probably told yourself it's just bad luck, that you keep meeting the wrong ones, that the good ones are all taken or boring or somewhere you're not. Here's the first thing I want you to hear. It isn't bad luck, it isn't the apps, and it isn't your type, and it definitely isn't that all the good ones are gone. There's a program running underneath your love life, one that was installed in you a long time ago, and it's been subconsciously choosing for you this whole time. You can't see it, and that's not a flaw in you. Not being able to see it is the entire point of how it works. Here's where it comes from, and I want you to stay soft with yourself while I say it. When you were very young, perhaps even long before you had words, your brain was watching one thing more closely than anything else. How love works here. Is it safe? Does it stay? Do I have to earn it, chase it, quiet myself for it? And out of that, it built a model. A map of what love is. Psychologists call it your internal working model. And the research is honestly a little unsettling. Those early maps predict how you behave in love decades later, far more than the experiences you've had since. The map you drew at 3 is still driving the car at 30. And that map put most of us into one of two grooves. If love felt uncertain when you were small, like it might disappear if you weren't vigilant, you probably became a pursuer. You feel it in your body when someone pulls back. You chase, you overgive, you text, and then hate yourself for texting. You read the silence like a detective. Or, if closeness felt unsafe, like it might swallow you or let you down, you became a withdrawer. The second someone truly wants in, something in you goes quiet and cool and starts looking for the exit or the flaw or the reason this was never going to work anyway. Neither of those is a personality. They're strategies. Brilliant ones for a child. And you've been running yours on grown adults who had nothing to do with the thing that installed it. Now here's the part that starts to sting. We don't just carry the wound, we go looking for it. Bessel van der Kolk, who spent his life studying trauma, describes how people unconsciously recreate the exact emotional dynamic of their earliest hurt and, in his words, rarely connect it to anything from the past at all. It just feels like chemistry, like this one's different. That spark you feel with the unavailable one, the intense pull toward the person who's a little too distant, a little too hot and cold. That's very often not love recognizing love. It's your nervous system recognizing home. And home, for a lot of us, was a place where love was uncertain. There's a reason the hot and cold ones are so addictive. When affection comes mixed with withdrawal, warm, then distant, then warm again, you don't attach less, you attach harder. Researchers studying this found that the intermittency, the unpredictability itself, was more tightly linked to how strongly people bonded than anything else. It's the exact mechanism that keeps a person at a slot machine. Steady, reliable love feels flat because a sure thing gives your nervous system nothing to chase. And you've been calling that flatness no spark, when really it was just the absence of anxiety. So here's the turn, and I want you to really brace for this one, because it's the thing almost nobody realizes about themselves. You're not only drawn to the people who confirm your wound, you're quietly repelled by the people who don't. There's a whole body of research on this from a psychologist named William Swan, and it's one of the most uncomfortable findings in all of psychology. We are wired to seek out people who see us the way we already see ourselves. And if, underneath everything, you secretly believe you're not quite enough, or too much, or fundamentally hard to love, then someone who treats you with steady, easy, unconditional warmth isn't going to feel like relief. It's going to feel wrong. Off. Like they've got you confused with someone better. Swan found that people who believed bad things about themselves actually became less committed to partners who saw them favorably. Read that again. The better someone treated them, the more they pulled away. That's the part that runs your life in the dark. It's not just that you chase the ones who can't love you. It's that when someone finally can, some hidden part of you gets bored or suspicious or suddenly notices all their flaws and finds a way out. Not because something's wrong with them, because their love contradicts the story, and the story feels safer than the love. You do not fix this by getting better at dating. You've probably already tried that. Better apps, better rules, playing it cooler, trying harder. That's all just managing the program from inside the program. The way out is to stop coping and turn toward the thing the coping has been protecting you from. 1. Name the belief. Underneath the pattern is a sentence you've been carrying since before you can remember. I'm too much. I'll be left. I have to earn it. Find yours. You cannot change a program you refuse to look at, and just seeing it starts to loosen its grip. 2. Feel the thing you keep coping around. The chasing, the withdrawing, the testing, the leaving first. Every one of those is a move to avoid a feeling, usually the terror of being abandoned or the terror of being truly seen. The next time you feel the urge to chase or to bolt, stop, and instead of doing the move, feel what's underneath it. That feeling is the actual wound, and a feeling you're willing to feel finally stops running you from the basement. 3. When the right kind of love feels boring, get suspicious of the boredom. This is the big one. If someone kind and steady and available leaves you a little cold, do not trust that verdict. That flatness isn't information about them. It's the sound of your nervous system missing the anxiety it calls love. Real security feels unfamiliar before it feels good. Give it longer than your pattern wants you to. And 4. Let yourself be seen and stay when it's terrifying. The deepest repair isn't finding the right person, it's letting a good one actually see you and staying through the part where your programming screams that you don't deserve it or it isn't real. Every time you stay, you teach your nervous system a new map, and slowly, being loved well stops feeling like a mistake and starts feeling like home. Notice what happened while you were listening. If a specific face came up or a pattern you've never quite said out loud suddenly had a shape, or some part of you went quiet and a little raw, that wasn't information landing. That was you seeing the program for the first time. And when you see it, you can't unsee it, which means it can't run you the same way ever again. You are not unlovable, and you are not cursed, and you are not bad at this. You're running a map that a frightened child drew a long time ago to stay safe and calling it your taste in people. That's not a flaw, it's just a program you never knew was there. But you know now, and the right kind of love, when it comes, isn't going to arrive with fireworks and dread. It's going to feel calm and steady and a little unfamiliar. Don't mistake that quiet for the absence of love. It might be the first time you're feeling the real thing.